Welcome to Chew the Fat. In this series, I sit down with high-performance guests and we talk about life, business, and what it takes to be at the top. This is part of my mission to raise $1 million for charity by writing a cookbook called Eat with Purpose. But I'm going to need your help. If you can share the content and leave a review, it's going to make a massive impact. And the bigger the audience, the greater the reach, and the sooner we can get to that $1 million goal. Enjoy the episode. Part of the Chew the Fat tradition, I cook you a dish, which ties it into the Eat with Purpose cookbook. Today, I know you're a vegetarian.
Amazing.
So we have some mushrooms, avocado, pickled onions, and a little salsa on top. So it's a mushroom taco.
Looks great.
Let's have a little bite.
That's great.
It's always fun when we have to travel and figure out how we can.
Do you buy stuff here?
Yeah, we just down at the Woolworths. Adam Schwab, co-founder and CEO of Luxury Escapes. Welcome to Chew the Fat.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Where I would love to start for the audience, what is the contextual background that made you the person you are today?
That's a really tough question. I've never been asked that before. There's clearly a lot of nurture in there, I think. My parents were both, in a way, entrepreneurs, accidentally so. My dad was he wanted to be a vet, never became one. Did medicine for like a year, then became a builder, like a building contractor essentially. So that's effectively a small business entrepreneurial role. Mum was a teacher, like an accounting teacher. And then then she obviously stopped teaching when she had kids, or she stopped when she had kids. And then during the recession, building basically ground to a halt. So 1991, 92, you couldn't get jobs. People were getting jobs at underquoting, going bust. A bit like what we've seen the last couple of years with builders. And my dad is actually super interesting from a entrepreneurial perspective. Is he realised that building was difficult, and he opened a cafe in a place called Williamstown in Melbourne, which is sort of west, actually inner west in a way. And I think there was one cafe there at the time. Now there's like 50. So he had this great ability to sort of, like any great entrepreneur, see the future. But he probably wasn't an incredible operator as such. And then Mum came in to help, and she's a really good operator in that sense, like super on the details. And I'm a bit of a combination of both of them. I don't think my mum doesn't have the risk tolerance to ever start a business, and Dad probably doesn't have he's actually good attention to detail, but probably doesn't have the really strong operational chops. So I'm a bit of a combination. So brought up in very middle class, and so we had some money, but almost the perfect, like in terms of luck, the perfect lucky situation that we never had so much money that you have too much money, but we had enough money to have a decent education and really understand the value of money in that sense. So incredible, like that great Guy Raz question, how much is it luck versus skill? Yep. And in my view, it's like 99.8% luck. There is definitely an element of hard work and skill involved for sure, but you've got to be born at the right time, in the right place, the right parents and all this stuff. And then in the right era, if you look at the sort of the richest people in history, or it may have changed in recent times, but look at that Gladwell book on, I think it was Outliers, on the richest people in history. There's that period, if you're born in like 1830 to 1840, the robber baron period, essentially. They came of age in the 1860s during called the US Industrial Revolution. And they became the richest people ever because they were born at the right time. So there's a huge amount of luck. So there's the initial luck, you've got to be born in the right place. Then there's a bit of hard work, skill, whatever. And you've got to be able to have another set of luck to be in the right place at the right time, to be able to use that to execute.
And were you commercially minded from a younger age? Like were you thinking about the dollars and cents and kind of wheeling, dealing and scheming?
Yeah, probably wheeling, dealing to a little bit of extent. I remember like when I had a bus stop and I'd go to the milk bar and I'd buy like lollies or whatever. And then people wanted them. I said, I'm on the bus, it's captive audience. And I sold them for, wasn't like a gouging profit, maybe a 10% markup. Yeah. The story about business has been how do we minimise the markup and maximise the customer satisfaction. But there was a little bit of that. That was probably the first ever unofficial business I ran. Then we had Jez, my co-founder, and we sold our year 12 notes. Our year 12 assignments, I should say. Then I sold my law notes, law notes is a bit of a cottage industry, and I sort of professionalised that a bit at my university. Bits, and I always had a very astute understanding of money in a sense that, because my parents had their own businesses, like what was taxable was not. And from probably the age of 11 or 12, I knew some stuff would be deductible and some stuff wouldn't. So I sort of took that, and now we've got a slightly larger business, so we're super pedantic on that sort of stuff. But certainly in the earlier days, it's what's deductible, what's not. I always had that, and I read business books probably when we were in year 11, won some academic award thing or whatever, and you got like a book voucher, and the book voucher I bought was Forbes Best Business Stories, it was like 20 business stories from, I think, Cyril McCormack's Rebar. So like these all, and went from like the 1800s to more recent. So going through all of these, from that point I fell in love with business books.
That's
so
cool.
almost everything I read is some sort of business book these days, and maybe Harry Potter.
Love that. That's so cool. Can I ask, for those who don't know, what is Luxury Escapes from your point of view?
Yeah, so we started Luxury Escapes as a spin-off from a different business we had, and I'm sure a lot of people you speak to, and I'm not sure if this is the case for your business, which is an awesome business, but a lot of people now, because the startup world is much more developed, they see a problem in real life, either a problem in their life or a problem in a friend's life, and they set out to solve that problem, and they use technology or whatever to solve that problem. We didn't do that. So we had a few other businesses. We had a backpacker apartments business and a corporate apartments business. Had a bit of cash, we bought and sold some stuff and wanted to do something more scalable. Had an idea, shelved that, went back to it later, and started a Groupon clone essentially in 2010. And that business had some good points, but was challenged from a product market fit perspective or from a unit economics perspective.
Why did you start that? Like, what was the driver to go, I'm going to do this and we're going to copy or replicate something that was in market?
I think that was back in the era called Web 2.0, early days, where people were just copying stuff in the States. Gabby and Hezi from Catch of the Day started a business called Catch of the Day, which was a copy of Woot, which was bought by Amazon. So people were just copying US businesses back then rather than solving a problem. They were just saying, oh, this is working over there, it'll work here. And to extend that, and the Samurai brothers from Rocket did that on an industrial scale in Germany. And they copied eBay, they copied Groupon, they copied a bunch of stuff. Copied Airbnb, and they often would sell it back to the original. So we started this Groupon clone. We called it Zoupon, actually. Ridiculous name. And at one point, and then Hezi, who was running Groupon, who's now a great friend of ours, who's a shareholder in us now, but back then we weren't, we didn't know him at the time. He just saw us this little gadfly, because they were a decent sized business. And they'd created this business called Scoopon, which was also a Groupon clone. And they'd stolen the groupon.com.au URL, which is super smart. And so we were just trading at Zoupon, minding our own business. We may not have copied a lot of the stuff they had, but that was sort of, everybody copies everything these days. So we were looking a lot like Scoopon, and they were sort of living with us, but obviously annoyed by us. Yeah. And then for some reason we started a different brand that was even more similar to that. We weren't going to use this thing. It was just completely irrelevant. And then Hezi sued us for passing off.
Oh, shit.
Probably had a fair point to an extent. We ended up changing the name to deals.com.au. But funny enough, at the time, so Scoopon was suing Zoupon and Groupon was suing Scoopon because for they stole the name. So everybody just settled a few months later, and we settled with Gabby and Hezi for a nominal amount. We changed the name to deals.com.au. So I had that business, and we realised that business was challenged from a refund perspective, from a customer satisfaction perspective. We started doing travel deals as part of that business, and people loved it. So hotels and resorts loved it because they were getting lots of business. So when I say a deal, it's like back then a 24-hour special. So let's say they were selling for $200 a night, so $400 for 2 nights. We'd sell it for $300 and give you free breakfast, making up. An example, customer saves sort of 30%, so it gets a great deal. Hotel gets a bunch of business when they need it, and we just sit in the middle, facilitate that transaction. So the beauty of that over the experiences business is we had much less issue with customer satisfaction, because you go to a hotel, hotels care about hospitality. There's something called TripAdvisor, which acts as a sort of a safeguard for customers. So you've got a better sort of environment to trade, and secondly, a much higher AOV, a much higher basket size.
For those who are unaware, what would AOV stand for?
Average order value.
Awesome.
So if you look at the classic, any business, the value of any business essentially drives down to what's the difference, what's the delta between your lifetime value and your cost of customer acquisition. I'm sure you know this from your business. And consumer businesses have a different different CAC to B2B. B2B, you can afford to have a much higher CAC because it's a longer life. So if you look at a normal consumer business that sells a $100 product, and you're making $20 margin out of that, if you're paying $100 to acquire that customer, you need that customer to buy a lot because you've got to cover your CAC and you've got to cover all your overheads, all this office and dev and all that kind of stuff. So as a rule of thumb, most businesses want to cover your CAC in your first purchase and then get a long tail of purchasing. Problem with the local business is if someone had a bad experience because the place didn't care, you've paid $50 to acquire a customer that's making you $20, and if they don't buy, you've lost $30. So the unit economics don't work. The beauty of travel is your average order value is $2,000, so you're making, call it $300, $400 a transaction. You can pay $250, $300 to acquire a customer and still make money if they only buy one. you still wanted to buy multiple, and a lot of our customers do. But so the unit economics looked a lot better for travel than local, which is what guided us into the travel part of the business. And we just kept investing more and more of our time and sort of our understanding into that. And we came into the business really, travel's an interesting sector in that you don't need a university degree to work in travel. If you look at Graham Turner-Screw, who obviously the doyen of Australian travel, who ran Flight Centre, he's a vet by trade. He never did travel. So I'd never stayed in a 5-star hotel before this business. I didn't have a clue about travel. There's a whole bunch of travel stuff that if you don't work in travel, you don't know. For example, hotels aren't owned by the brand. So you think of Hilton or Core Hyatt. They don't own really any hotels. People think they do. They don't. It's like a franchise model. So all this stuff that like you don't care as a customer. You just want to go to a hotel and have a good experience. You sort of have to, or the way that travel's distributed, the dynamic versus static, all this stuff we didn't know about. We had to learn. And we have learned over the last, we still aren't experts compared to some people, but the whole way air's distributed, the way always land's distributed, the whole way destination management companies work. There's all this stuff in travel that being completely clueless was probably helpful to us and that we could approach the industry in a really different way.
I love that. That right amount, that perfect amount of like ignorance and naivety is often a perfect business formula.
We had a lot of ignorance.
and so that's where it started. Like, what is it today? Like, what is the customer is getting today when they go to luxury escapes?
Yeah. So we really evolved the business a lot over COVID. So think of the sort of our evolution as a business. 2010, 2013, called the pre-luxury escapes days. We sold experiences. We sold a little bit of travel, but it was pre-travel. Then 2013, 2017, actually we've spoken to before. 2013, 2017, we had a travel business. We had a product business as well. Actually, we sold homewares and fashion under called The Home. A bit like Temple. Yeah. We were directly competing with Temple & Webster, which has done incredibly well since then. And we also had a fashion business called Brands Exclusive, which essentially is a bit like The Iconic, but a bit like Satire, which is potentially done well, but I think it's a massive fraud. But anyway, so we had that business, and we had our local business, and we had travel. So we had 3 different businesses, and it was just a bit confusing for investors to potentially looking to invest. We looked at listing on the ASX, and investors looked and go, "We like your travel business. Local thing's okay. The product thing sucks. It's too confusing. We can't be stuff doing the work for a $150 million business," which is probably what it was then. So we took that advice on board because the advice was right, like the investors were right, and we did a deal with Gabby and Hezi from Catch. Remember they featured a bit early in the story. So they had the same issue as us. They had a great product business. They had an okay local business and a struggling-ish travel business. They sold us a travel business and took some equity in us. We sold them the product business for virtually nothing because it was useless. And we merged our local businesses, which is Scoop-On and Deals, into we ran the entity, but we sort of merged the ownership of it. We have since, Luxury Escapes since bought the local business out, which has worked out well because we could just subsume it within Luxury Escapes. And we didn't have product anymore, which is great because we were terrible at product, like horrendous. And it's really hard product to get right. You need scale and expertise, which we didn't have either of. So we had basically effectively a pure play travel business. So 2017 to 19, same model. So what we call flash sales. We were running at sort of 30 to 40 really incredible offers, tours or hotels and resorts. These were tending running for about 2-week period by then, and it'd be great brands. I work with many of the great brands around the world because we had this great Luxury Escapes brand that they would be feel comfortable working with. But it was very much a one-trick pony in a sense. Flash is an incredible business in many ways. Great cash profile, great for hotels, great for customers. But there's a limited TAM. So TAM means total addressable market, as your viewers probably know. And the problem with Flash is because we give a degree of region exclusivity, so we'll work with 1 or 2 Bali places at one time. We'll work with 1 Maldives place, 1 London place. So we're not going to have, we don't want people competing against each other in terms of deals. And then as a result, you're limited in how much you can sell because you're just capping yourself. So we knew we needed to change and fix that. So the Gabby and Hezi went through the same process at Catch of the Day actually. So they went from a flash business to a marketplace, and so did Kogan. They went from a flash business to marketplace as well. So it's kind of a natural evolution because you run out of TAM, you run out of runway. So we were doing that, and we knew we needed to move to a marketplace business somehow. But at the same time as the whole beauty of the Luxury Escapes business, we were an impulse-driven business, and the way we can get the deals we get and the incredible value we get, because everybody in travel's at par or parity or what we call bar, best available rate. The reason why we can beat that is because we offer a different product. We're only live for 2 weeks, but the key commercial driver for our hotel partners is 95, 96% of our customers are incremental in that they weren't planning on going to the hotel till we told them about it. 67% weren't even planning on going to the country. So you might be planning to go to Bali, we'll send you Vietnam or vice versa.
Yeah.
Or you might want to go to Bora Bora. Actually, this is an incredible Maldives deal. They're kind of the same and this is way better. So the ability to be able to change customers' destinations is really powerful for a hotel who's getting incremental business versus a Booking.com and Expedia. Incredible businesses, but they, to a large extent, furnish existing demand. You want to go to Hilton Brussels, type in Hilton Brussels, up comes Booking, great business, great distribution. You're going to buy it from Booking, hotel pays Booking. They were going to get the customer anyway, versus someone who buys from luxury stays weren't going to go to Grand Hyatt Bali, weren't going to go to Mondrian Singapore, weren't going to go to NH Maldives, probably didn't even know about these hotels. So we literally get customers and not only do we shift to where they're going, but we create trips because there's an elasticity of demand in travel and that people will travel at a price point. If we can reduce that price point, we can get more people to travel. So it becomes a really great win-win. Because we're only live for a couple of weeks, hotels aren't disturbing the other channels. They can still sell on Booking.com. They can still sell direct. They can still, because we're only on for a couple of weeks, we don't displace. In fact, the opposite, we build up that base, they can charge more on other channels. So we create a real win for profitability for hotels. So that's kind of the crux of the Flash model.
Can I pause us there for 1 second?
Yeah.
And I apologize if I'm taking us on a tiny segue, but I would love to know, so while we talk about that particular element, which is you've got those hotels at a reduced rate, what did that look like from when day one, when you had to go and pitch to a hotel? Like today you have that data. You know, today you can say, hey, we're shifting you across and therefore the value proposition is really strong. How did you convince those hotels in those first early days of Luxury Escapes to go, hey, we believe this is going to happen?
And you'll experience yourself in your business. Like the hardest thing to do is sell in the early days. And we were lucky in a way. There's a guy called Mark who I went to uni with, who did law as well, and he was looking to do a business with us, a different business, like a music-related business. That business completely failed. But as often from failure comes the seeds of success. And while we were sort of working on that, he started doing some sales for us. And it turns out he was just this incredible salesperson. And salesperson, not the word, more negotiator is probably the right word. So he would be able to rock up to a Thailand hotel in Bintang t-shirts, a Bintang shirt and thongs, and negotiate this $1 million deal. And because he was so commercial that he would understand without like knowing how he did it, and he didn't know how he did it. We know how he did it, but he effectively created the category for us. There were people sort of doing this around the world, but no one did it or does it as well as we do. And it's based on a lot of what Mark did. So Mark had the genesis of the idea. He came up with the idea of advertising in newspapers. He came up with the idea of how we merchandise it. Like, so we had Scoop On was doing. Other people were sort of doing bits and pieces of this, but Mark and Jez and I were sort of in amongst it, and Josh as well, in amongst it too. But basically created the template, and because he was such an incredible salesperson, he was able to go into like an Asian hotel and convince. And it was generally non-branded in the early days, and we do deals. So I remember our first, like we did some of the early deals. We're making like $1 million in like a couple of days. And we had no cost then. So the business actually far more profitable back then than it is now, but obviously not scalable. Like, so we had to scale and add 500 people. But back then he was actually him running. He was doing sales. I was doing the content. We had one customer service person. He was answering the phone on the weekends. It was literally like a cottage industry in a sense. And that's absolutely the hardest bit. So whenever you speak to lots of founders, entrepreneurs, and lots of founders probably listening to this, and the great challenge, and we were talking about this before, the great challenge for any founder is you've got to be the number one salesperson. So I'm an ex-lawyer. Lawyers actually pretty good salespeople in many ways. Like the best partners are the best salespeople. Aren't the best technical lawyers, are the best. They don't do the work. They do the sales. They sell to corporates to pay them $1,000, $2,000 an hour. In a sense, I'm sort of a salesperson in this business as well. Like no one, I don't know why, but sales gets a bad rap when it's the most important job of all.
Literally.
Every entrepreneur is head of sales. And you need to be able to obviously create the playbook and bring in case it was Mark for us, and then now we've got obviously a sales team of 30, 40 and some incredible people in there. And what actually, I'm digressing a bit, but there's probably our number one salesperson now. We had another really good person who's become a sales manager, both become sales managers, but our best performer now came from corporate travel, Flight Centre, and he was pretty good, but he's just been able to learn and improve, and he's probably better than Mark was. Even Mark was so good back in the day, but our number one now, a guy called Aaron, is so good, and the way he thinks about stuff commercially, he's now working with hotels to change the way they operate. So they'll change the room configuration because he's saying, why don't you add this type of family room, and They add a family room. We run it as a deal. They keep the family room
Yeah.
all year, and he's making hotels money. So we, in a way, now have sort of morphed to act in that part of the business, acting as almost a consultant for the hotel and helping them make money.
That's
and
cool.
for us, and I speak to, and you got a brand who's in there as well. So it's a bit complex, but and I won't delve into the complexity of that. But what inherently we're trying to do as a business, and we sort of flush this out over a decade, is we exist to make money for hotel partners. So we want to come into a hotel through our flash business and work out a way to make you money as a hotel. And this would be, nobody else in the industry does this in any way. So people do a similar risk model to us, but nowhere near our scale, nowhere near our complexity, nowhere near our understanding. But when we created a tactical flash deal for our hotel partners, we're thinking of how can we create an incredible package for the customer, so customers having a massive win. But as important is how do we make money for the hotel? And if we can achieve both these things, we'll be successful in the long run. Because you look at Hamilton Helmer's forces, is obviously there's a bunch of them, but brand is a big one. And we want, and you look at brand and then you get scale from brand eventually. But if customers trust us that we're giving them a great deal, and hotels trust us we're making money, that's the brand, that's the economic goodwill. So anyway, that's a long way with an answer. We had this flash business, good business in all these ways, but lacks TAM. So we didn't want to cook the golden goose, because the beauty of what we do is that paradox of choice solving. So Booking.com, incredible business, but has this massive paradox of choice, 500,000 hotels and villas on there. We didn't want to become another Booking.com, because we just get smashed because they're just too good an operator. They got too much brand power.
What kind of scale were they playing at that stage, roughly?
It wouldn't be that much more than that, but talking hundreds of billions of TTV.
Wow.
They're now 135 billion US business market value. So not as big as the big the Nvidias and the Apples, but big. And in terms of throughput and in volume, there wouldn't be many bigger. Like you're looking at Walmart, Amazon, like in the hundreds of billions turnover, they'd be like at least 200 billion turnover. There aren't many business turnover more than that, maybe Cargill. There's very few. So they're very much, and yes, the margins are small in travel. So if you can get 2-3% EBITDA margin, that's considered good, because you're playing with such big TTV.
Numbers,
So we knew we didn't want to compete against Booking, who's a beast, and they're just over the last 15 years perfected. They're probably they're the biggest, Google's biggest spender, and they're very good at it. It's globally, and they've got incredible relationships with hotels from a technical connectivity perspective, and they've got a great loyalty. So they've got all this stuff they do really well. So we didn't want to go head to head because we just lose. Like Expedia is the classic example. Expedia is worth 18 billion. Expedia and Booking used to be the same. So Booking's now 7x or whatever. Expedia and not 18 billion is a bad business, but
only 18 billion.
But when you've seen your competitor go from 18 to 1 to 36, 100%. So we didn't want to go head to head, but we knew we could do some stuff. So we wanted to take our flash business legacy and make a mini marketplace. So we started doing this during COVID. So during COVID, we already had this notion that we needed to do some sort of marketplace.
That's actually really interesting. Do you know what else is interesting? The Eat with Purpose Cookbook. It's part of my mission to raise $1 million for charity. This podcast is a part of that goal, and what you can do is like, comment, share, and leave us a review. Let's get back to the guest.
And COVID came, every travel business in the world's firing people left, right and centre.
And can I pause you for 1 second just to help for the audience? Define the marketplace. Is it, rather than having the flash pre-selection, it's trying to be almost every hotel
everything.
in that category, in your category.
In that destination, essentially. So for us, we were never going to do 2-3 star places. So it's sort of 4 or 5 star places. So if you look at London, there's hundreds and hundreds of 4 and 5 star, potentially almost 1,000 4 or 5 star hotels. We didn't forget the 1, 2, 3. We didn't want to have 1,000 hotels on the site because you become a shitty Booking.com. We wanted to curate the top 20 or 30 that we handpick and have direct contracts with those hotels to essentially have a Booking.com with inclusion. And this model actually exists. There's a business called Virtuoso, which is really a B2B2C platform. So they sell to agents. There's a business called Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which kind of does that, but it's never really made any money. There's a few other businesses that do this kind of thing. Amex Fine Hotels does it as part of your platinum. You take about $1,800 to get to it. So there's a few businesses who kind of do this inclusion on a marketplace, but nobody's really, really cracked it. So we wanted to say, we've got this flash business with lots of traffic, and we know if say you wanted to go to London and you went to Luxury Escapes in 2019, you'd see either nothing or one thing, which is, so the one thing could be in the wrong spot for you. So to get London covered, you need to have like 20 or 30 minimum. And we wanted to get contracts with 20 or 30 properties, create this curated marketplace, which is better value than Booking.com. And the quid pro quo of the hotel was similar to our flash discussion, is that we're not going to put 1,000 properties on there. We're going to put 20 or 30. If you want to be in the 20 or 30, you got to give us this free breakfast. So it's not as deep value as our other business, but better value than the parody guys.
Yes.
And we didn't we executed it right in some jurisdictions, but not everywhere. And
Define not executed it right. Like what were the
we didn't get
elements
the
you missed?
inclusions
Okay.
and there's a lot more complexity in that business than we thought at the time. There's always different rate types. We weren't getting the lowest rate. They were giving better rates to booking. So not only were we not getting better than booking, we're getting worse in some cases.
Yes.
We've largely fixed that. So we're at least as good as booking or better in pretty much all cases. But it still hasn't quite, wasn't quite what we wanted. So now we've actually built a paywall that we're going to launch in the next few months that will give us much, much better value. It'll be the best value
And the paywall for
marketplace.
almost like a members only
Yeah,
subscription.
you actually have to pay for it. So at the moment we're members only, but you have to pay. So it's a bit of a loose paywall.
Yes.
Where I was going to charge sort of $300 plus a subscription fee.
Yes.
It could be a bit less than $300 actually, but we want to give the best value in travel, which can come because hotels wanted to give these great flash-like products if they're behind a proper paywall, whereas they weren't as willing without a proper paywall. So the marketplace has been a really good learning for us. So the turnover's great. It's got multi-$100 million turnover business in sort of 18, 24 months. But the profitability wasn't, because A, we don't have a scale, and B, there was some complexity we didn't expect. So we've executed, if you're sort of grading execution on marketplace. So just to go back, because I started telling the story, is we didn't want to fire anybody during COVID. We wanted to do our best to keep as many staff as we could. So we basically said half the team go focus on marketplace, half kept doing flash, like local Australian flash. That kept the lights on. We still lost money, but didn't lose so much that we had to fire anybody. So I think we were probably the only travel business during COVID that didn't fire anyone because of COVID. Like people obviously leave the business.
The whole industry went like, what are we talking? Give us like a percentage wise? Like
30 plus. Even the bookings in the Airbnbs, the incredible travel businesses that have bounced back hard.
30% of what it was?
30% of that staff left.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. I should reframe the question. What was the reduction in revenue from a percentage?
150. Like you lost all your revenue and you had to refund.
Yeah.
So like we bounced. That was the first couple of months. We were lucky in that we have a decent Australian to Australia business, and obviously Australia border shut, but we could to an extent travel within Australia. So that business was able to sort of turn over more than what it was doing pre-COVID. So we lost half our revenue probably. Other businesses lost more. Airbnb bounced back pretty quick as well, same reason, because the nature of Airbnb. And booking bounced back a little bit slower, but bounced back quite hard.
Yes.
And they had heaps of cash and all that stuff. So local travel agents got hit probably the hardest.
Yeah.
They took the longest to bounce back. Now they're doing pretty well because travel is obviously bigger than ever. But we didn't want to sort of move people like everybody else did. So we were lucky enough. It was sort of right place, right time. Probably give ourselves a 5 out of 10 for marketplace execution, maybe up to 6 out of 10 now. So we're getting better, but it's been a much harder road than we expected. We definitely didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. We thought it'd be easier than it was. And in many cases, not understanding travel has been helpful for the business. But in that case, probably not. But we've sort of gone through that now, and the marketplace is going pretty well. We've got a tours marketplace, a hotels marketplace, just launched villas marketplace, a cruise marketplace. So if you want to buy a cruise online, there's only 1 or 2 sites in Australia you can actually buy it online.
Right.
Like you can call plenty of call centres, but you can choose your stateroom, you can choose your ship, you can choose your departure, all online with us if you want to book a cruise at the best pricing globally. And we're working on a loyalty plan to hook it all together and get points for that. But we've got, and we sell experiences as well, like a red balloon type business. So you can actually book your entire trip on Luxury Escapes. Now, pre-COVID, you definitely couldn't. And now you can book every facet. You can go to, we've always been great at the Bali flop and drop. So 20% of Australians who go to Bali buy through Luxury Escapes because our value is next level. But like 1% of people who go to the UK, Europe and US book through us. We knew we can get higher than that, but to get higher, you need to have a different product. Our product wasn't right for those markets. Now with marketplaces, or our different marketplaces, you can actually book your complete US trip through Luxury Escapes and get every single one. So if you want to go to booking.com, you can get your hotel, but then you got to get your flight from Webjet, you got to get experience from Viator, you got to get your lounge access and priority, whatever. We sell it all. So you can actually buy, and we've got a product called Trip Planner we can all put together in a really nice UX.
I was going to ask you about Trip Planner.
So yeah, we've sort of built the complete package. We're still working on Trip Planner. It's still.
What is your measure of success? So I like hearing you've said 5 or 6 out of 10. Like, what was your measurement in the business? And maybe let me help contextualize for the audiences that someone might be thinking about. Yeah, hey, we're doing a pivot or we're adding a new product. Is like, what are my different gates that tell me I'm doing a good job, or I should potentially can this and move forward?
It's a really good question. Really hard to answer. Partly because I don't. Every product is different. For a start, you want customer love. Like customers need to like to use the product.
Yep.
And if customers are liking and using the product, that should lead to profitability. Like ultimately, we lived in a ZIRP world, a zero interest rate policy world, where profitability didn't matter. We've now switched in the last year where profitability does matter. And obviously you're bootstrap, you understand the importance of profitability. We were always bootstrapped till COVID, so we had to be. So profitability still is king. So for people who are watching, listening, there's no point building a product that doesn't make money because it's not the right product. Because you need to have some sort of hurdle rate. Obviously, big ASX listed companies have that as a priority, but if it doesn't have a specific hurdle, they won't do it. A bit different with sort of startups or scale ups, and that you've got to have a bit of a leap of faith. It is a bit of the Steve Jobs, we'll create the product before the market tells us to. So it is harder to judge, but ultimately, if you can't be making money out of a product, then you've got to look at how much I've invested in terms of development, engineer, and design, and product, and all that kind of stuff. So if we can't be making money out of a product, then it's not working. So in terms of Trip Planner, we're probably a similar 4 out of 5, 4 or 5 out of 5. I've got a new team working on it now, which I think are doing a good job. We probably didn't quite get it right. And a lot of that's on me because Trip Planner was sort of my product and I don't always use it now. Like I use it sometimes. I don't always use it. I still use Excel a bit and we haven't quite got to that replacement level. I think we'll get there in the next sort of 24 months. Much more complex. We knew that would be hard because lots of businesses, even the Booking.coms, the Airbnbs have tried to go down this trip planning road and everybody failed. Like plenty of startups have tried, haven't had the cash. Nobody's got it right. We think we're in a better position than most because we sell everything and we're pretty good at product. So we've got a couple of inherent advantages. We still haven't quite got it right. I think we'll get there. Now I've got all the products, and I think AI is the final. People banding around AI all the time, and we haven't yet to see an AI product that's any good. It's all sort of just like test of proof of concepts. Even GPT is still a bit fun. Proof of concept doesn't actually really deliver great value, but we think AI is starting to deliver now in customer service. You see Klarna's announcement a couple of weeks ago. They've got rid of heaps of people from front line, putting them to second line, and saved a bunch of money. So that's coming. But I think for us, we've got the ability. We sell all the products. We've got heaps of first party data. So customers are browsing on our site, telling us what they want. We've had hundreds and hundreds of thousand people tell us their travel preferences, like fundamentally tell us, and then millions of people do stuff on the site that tells us what they want to do. So we've got all this first party data. We've got all the products there. We've got this trip planner product, which looks nice. The final sort of bow to wrap that up is you want to go to Europe, you've got one kid, the kid's 3, you're traveling with your family, you're looking at these kind of properties. So we know the kind of amount you want to spend. We'll create the perfect trip for you from hotels to air to experiences. You can pick and choose what you want to take. You don't go buy one of the 100 things or buy all of it, and we can use AI to build that trip. You've seen Expedia and a few people try and build this AI-driven whatever trip planning. A, don't have the trip planner software built properly. B, they don't use the first party data properly, and C, AI is not there yet. So this is probably 2 to 3 years away from being there, but I think we're in a better position than anyone because of the first party data, because of the product suite, to be able to effectively, the only people who can do it now are travel agents, and it's really just high-end travel agents. So travel agents work really well if you're spending a couple of grand or really actually $5,000 plus. They can make enough money through the commissions to spend the time. Actually 20 is probably the point where it's really worthwhile for them because you're getting caught 10%, 15%, you're making $2-3 grand. You can spend 4, 5, 6 hours. We think we can get to travel agent capability, actually probably better because it's a better product suite and all that kind of stuff in like seconds at no cost essentially because the customer's getting great. So at the moment, travel agents are the only game in town if you're building a complex trip, really, or you can sort of guess yourself or use, if you're really savvy traveller, you can probably work it out, but that's like sub 10% of people. Most people just want to be told, go here, go here, go here. Here's the best. People ask me all the time, what's the best place to go to Maldives? What's the best place to go to Bali? And I'll ask them, well, who are you travelling with? Do you have a budget? Have you been there before? What do you like to do? And I'm getting all this information. We can get all that. We can synthesize that information naturally and either ask or get it naturally and build the absolute best trip for everyone. That's a real customer service. So I'm looking forward to that, not to make money out of it, but to create great memories and great happiness. We're essentially in the happiness business. And the better we do at our business, the happier people become. And the greatest sort of means of success for us is not how much money do we make to an extent. That's obviously important for stakeholders, but is people saying, I had the best holiday of my life. Could be the first time they've been away, and someone from Perth who's never left the city. I went to Bali. I've literally have never had a holiday this good. This is the best thing I've ever had. I wouldn't be able to do without luxury escapes because you made it affordable for me. So I think we can, we've got the affordability nailed, but I think we can take the guesswork out of travel and create incredible trips for people that they're just not taking now because there's the information asymmetry.
And how far away from that, so that would, let's call it utopia, from the trip planner that you have today, what I'd love to understand is, again, that measure of success. Is that around, customers utilizing it from start to finish? It's a particular percentage of customers that, are on the platform that then convert via the attachment rate. Like, what does that look like, and what's that gap?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's confused a little bit internally because we, in a way, create trip plans for people automatically.
Yes.
And then they can sort of look at it and use it, but are they really using it, or are they sort of just using it incidentally?
Yes, yeah.
Like, if you look at numbers now, we have like almost 1 million people use it, like tens of thousands of honeymoons, 10,000 of hen's days, all that kind of stuff. But that's not really using it. So what we want is people building that trip on Trip Planner and synthesizing the ideas on Trip Planner. I think we're 2-3 years away, maybe sooner. Look at the next iteration Trip Planner. The next iteration Trip Planner is, you choose what you want to do. You want to go to, say you were coming to Melbourne, you're from Sydney, you're coming to Melbourne. Here's the top 30 or 40 things people, because you travel to experience stuff.
Yeah.
And we want to, so now you can go to Trip, we'll soon be able to go to Trip Planner. Here's the top 50 things to do in Melbourne. You can plot it out and go, so I want to go to Botanical Gardens, I want to go to this show, I want to go to this restaurant. Plot out. We'll then suggest hotels that are in close proximity to all that stuff. And then you can, and a lot of this experience aren't actually, like Botanical Gardens doesn't cost anything. So we're not making any money on that. We're just making a better trip.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you also then, in thinking of Trip Planner, connecting to things that you're not going to necessarily commercialize?
100%.
Like, yeah, perfect.
100%.
And that's the only way you win, I think, in that particular environment, right? Like, if you're going to plan out 60% of your trip.
Exactly. But Trip Planner's never been about commercializing everything.
Yes.
Like, you can book restaurants or all that kind of stuff through us, but really, if you plan 40 things on a trip and one thing is booked through luxury, that's fine. Or zero. We don't mind. Like, you're using our platform, you're using our tool. So part of the sort of idea behind, and why we're only sort of 4 or 5, not 10 yet, is we wanted to use Trip Planner as product-led growth.
Yes.
And people share it because it's a great tool.
Yes.
And I think it is a great tool. It's probably not quite great enough to be that PLG type tool, but I think we'll get there. And we've got some influencers who created great trips for us, so you can come on and create a trip and we can share that and then we can monetize that for influencers. So there's a bunch of stuff we've been working on there. Hasn't quite got there yet, but we're getting close. So I love it because so much, we talked earlier in the episode, like so much of stuff's copied. Like original idea copied, we copy lots of stuff. Nobody's done Trip Planner. We're sort of breaking new ground here with Trip Planner. Nobody's done it right. Our team's having to come up with stuff themselves. And there's other stuff we're doing that nobody's done, but this is one really that nobody's done well at all. So there's such great white space in the market to get it right. And people talk about AI and all that sort of jazz hands around AI, but really nobody's executed on AI properly at all. We think we're in a great position to do it. We've got a super smart development team.
How big's your development team?
About 130, 140.
Yeah, right.
So it's not huge. It's not tiny, but it's not huge in a sense. Like Booking would have thousands. Everyone would have that. Like, so we're not at that anything like that scale. Oh, obviously the Googles and the Metas are like hundreds of thousands.
Size of Australia.
Yeah, so it's small, but they're super smart. We intentionally keep it small because we don't want it to get out of control. So, and we're not a deep tech business clearly, although Trip Planner's getting into that, and AI stuff's getting into that sort of deeper tech. And we're doing a bunch of personalization stuff. The personalization team, originally based in Israel, now it's Israel-Sydney combination. They're doing some amazing stuff around. We personalise at least one email a week for you. So you're getting an email potentially that we've included stuff that's based on your preferences, what you've clicked on.
Right.
And the rates of clicks and purchases we're getting on those emails is 3 to 4x non-personalised, which makes sense, right? Because we're narrowing it down. So we're getting better. That's been about a 3 to 4 year journey, and we built that all in-house. So we tried using Einstein, which didn't work at all. So we've actually just transitioned off Salesforce Marketing Cloud onto Braze because Einstein was a disaster. And we previously used another business called Sailthrough, and that was a disaster as well. So we actually said we had to build ourselves because none of these third-party tools works for our use case. I'm not sure they work for many use cases. They certainly didn't work for an unusual travel use case.
And can so I want to take a macro lens now, so just kind of take a step back and really try and help the audience, I guess, understand how you think. And one of the questions I have is like, how do you make these big critical decisions in your business? Do you have a potential mental model? Is there like, what's your framework to make these critical decisions like that? We're going to build this new product called Trip Planner. It's not 100% going to be commercialized. However, we believe it's going to be sticky.
I was speaking to David Schaefer, who runs Kogan, or him and Ruslan run Kogan, and Chase came up with a really good point, and that's been a great Australian success story. And his point, and I've sort of stuck, and every entrepreneur to an extent does this, but he eloquated it really well. He goes, we're about asymmetric bets. If we invest 100 grand in something, if it works, it makes us 10 mil. If it doesn't work, we've lost 100 grand. But startups are a classic example of that, but scale ups as well. So if we invest $1 million in something, if it really works, $100 million business. If it doesn't work, we've lost $1 million. There's the one way, two way door thing as well. Can we reverse this at any time? This is Jeff Bezos' famous one way. One way door is something you can't reverse. A two way door is something you can. So everybody loves two way doors. Everybody hates one way doors because he's got not say you can never do a one way door, but he's got to be much more circumspect about it. So A is a two way door, so I can easily just go back from it. And the big driver is, can we create a win-win or win-win-win? And when I talk about that is, can we create a great product for customers that customers love, that will cause them to spend more money with us, that will make money for our partners, be it hotels, be it experiences, whatever. And then we can just sit in the middle. So whatever, Trip Planner is a classic example. But Trip Planner, we're creating this great utility for the customer. Ideally, that creates more throughput for our experience partners, for our hotel partners. They're getting more sales through. And we just sit in the middle as the technology provider, essentially there, or the product provider in some ways. So it's that a lot of businesses are in the win-loss business. And you can be some great business in the win-loss business, but they're still in the win. Like lawyers are a classic example, really, in many cases. Litigators especially.
Yeah.
We want to be in the win-win business, and we're lucky in the sense that the product's happiness, so it's a natural advantage. But our whole business is how do we create win-wins. Another example is we have a magazine, and we briefly had a podcast. We got a TV show, we had 6 series of TV shows. TV show is a great example of a win-win-win. So we put our partners on a TV show. They get incredible branding on Foxtel, Channel 10. We get lots of customers exposed to us. Those customers buy. So we can create incredible value for our partner. And we get sponsors who cover a lot of the cost.
Yes.
So out-of-pocket cost is relatively minimal. There is an out-of-pocket cost, but it's not huge. Our partners get incredible value from it, and our customers get to watch Australia's Best Travel. It's Australia's #1 rating travel show and most popular. And the best, I think, not being biased. And we get a run-off in sales. So it's really, and Red Bull's another classic. Red Bull do it 100 times better than us. Yeah. But look, Red Bull's the perfect example of that, creating that win-win. How do we create win-win-wins across all our products? So Trip Planner is a classic example. Marketplace, obviously, a classic example. So we're always looking to build stuff that create extra win-wins that customers benefit from, partners benefit from.
That's interesting. Okay, so for everybody listening, the idea is like, okay, is this decision, is this pivot, is this added product that we're doing, is it going to be a win for our business, a win for the customer, and in your case, it is a win for a third party too?
Yeah.
And then therefore, if the answer is yes, let's take a bet.
Yeah. I'll give you another example. We introduced deposits probably a year ago.
Yes.
And we don't charge interest on deposits at all. So we charge a small admin fee that works out to be like a tenth of the cost if you're putting on a credit card or whatever it is, or way cheaper. We have a higher conversion rate, and our customers effectively get free credit, and our hotels get more sales. Yeah. So it becomes, again, another win-win-win. So we just sit in the middle, effectively built an afterpay type. Yeah. Afterpay doesn't really work with travel, but by now, book later doesn't really work because it's 8 weeks and travel, our lead time 6 months. So it's not really.
Are you holding that as a business, or are you then being able to negotiate on the hotels as well?
We don't pay the hotels till we get paid by the customer. So we're not at risk.
Okay.
But we do lose the now interest rate. Now money's not free. We actually lose that. So there absolutely is a cost to us, but that cost is covered by a higher conversion rate and higher customer satisfaction. We don't have it on every product because there is a cost to us in doing that. Course. We have it on usually the more expensive products. But another great example of win-win-win. Customer wins, hotel wins, and we win by getting more sales.
That's cool. I like that. And you've co-founded this business. It's very different in 10 plus years ago when you started, right? As a CEO, as a founder, like how have you been able to scale yourself? Because the requirements of the business 10 years ago, very different to the Adam that sits here today.
Yeah, such a great question. I think you've had an almost identical journey in your business as a co-founder leader. It's a really hard question to answer. It takes a lot of self-reflection, which I'm not great at. I think the thing that if you compare corporate CEOs to guys like us, startup guys and girls like us, founders, like corporate CEOs do great at org design, great talent managers and retainers, and great resource allocators. Startup people need to be all that for sure, although less so at the start. And less at the start, you need to be a product evangelist, a salesperson, really good product person as well, be able to build the product and then sell the product. And then as the business gets bigger, you've got to start adding extra bows to your cap. You've got to be able to start managing people. So you go from 1 person to 500 people to 1,000 people. That's a very different challenge. And you've got to step out of the sales degree because you get a sales team that does that to a large degree. So these days, I only handle, so if something goes terribly wrong from a sales perspective, even then it's more I'm dealing with at a brand level and an owner level, not negotiating deals. So you sort of step out of sales, you step out of product to a degree, although I think CEOs should be the ultimate product owner. Obviously, Steve Jobs, the classic example. Everybody talks about Steve, but whatever. Elon Musk, another example. If you look at the recent Google Gemini debacle with the DEI stuff, that's because Larry and Sergey are so far from the product. Yeah, I know Sergey's arguably involved in the AI stuff, but they're so far from the product these days that it's being run by committee somewhere else. So that's why it was such a disaster. And it obviously was unintended, but that was a disaster. Versus, and it's the whole Tim Cook, Steve Jobs thing that I talk about on my pod a lot, but the whole Steve Jobs, obviously this great product person. Tim Cook's still great in many ways, but Tim Cook's skills different to Jobs's.
Yeah.
As I've sort of become longer in the tooth here, I've certainly had to change what I expect. I'm still, every product I review really closely through the product journey. So like,
and how detailed do you get? So and I'll pause you for 1 second. What I want to share is one of the challenges I've seen with especially early stage founders and businesses is they take this approach far too early. That's not my department. Yeah. You know, so and I remember so classically, I had a guy pitching me about, we should be doing this amazing integration. And for me, I took the view that I need to know enough to be dangerous. Because so I asked him a simple question, what's your code stack?
Yeah.
Contextualizing, he had a team of 4, right? Yeah. And he goes, 1 second, I'll pull up the Word file my CTO sent it to me recently. And I'm like, how? How do you not know like a detail there? So coming back to you, is like what level of detail these days do you take on that stuff?
In terms of engineering, that's more of an engineering question, not so much. Like, I know like the basic levels of what we're coding in, but I'm not an engineer by background. I've never, in terms of product, a lot to the point of probably too much. Yeah. So like, not every product, and certainly like in terms of the small stuff, I don't originate, but the big products I tend to still originate.
Yeah, great.
And this would be like let's say it takes 6 months to build a product. I'll be looking at every month or two. Yes. But then we do showcases every 2 weeks, and I'm giving pages and pages of notes to my CPO, CTO from the showcase. So that's sort of, I'm screenshotting it constantly and giving, because obviously we've got 15 different teams. I can't be over what every team's doing. Yes. It's annoying for them and impossible for me. But I'll be giving, so I'm probably the other extreme, that almost annoyingly so. So, which is, I guess, the Steve Jobs famous, like, made buttons change because shouting wasn't enough. Maybe not to that extent, but not that far off. Yeah. I'm not sure what the right balance is. I'm probably a bit too much in terms of product. Probably need to step a little bit away. But there's pros and cons to it. I think if you don't understand the product as a leader, that's problematic. You've got to understand the product, understand how the product works, and also understand. You can go back to that Steve Jobs. We got to build products that people want before they know they want them. Yes. That's the great challenge of every CEO, especially every tech CEO, but really any product CEO. So we need to. If I'm building, I don't want to build a trip plan if nobody's going to use it, nobody's going to appreciate it. Like, so there's different in execution failure and idea failure, and that's it. We'll get stuff wrong as well. Although our record historically is pretty good, and it's probably too high. We probably get more stuff right than we should, because you need to get stuff wrong because otherwise you're not trying enough. It's a delicate balancing act, but I'm not sure I've answered your question properly, but very detailed.
Yeah. And I guess the final follow-up to that particular question would be like, to that person who's starting the business, is why do you believe that that's the right way for yourself? I know you mentioned there's different varied levels, but why do you believe that was the right way for you that got you here today?
I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure it's the right way or not, but it's kind of just who I am. Like I'm super detailed, like to always be on, and ultimately you're responsible for it. You put a product into the market, like if you as CEO is not, and I still sign off on every deal. It's usually a very quick sign off, and usually that 98% of the time the team's got it right and don't need my comments, but I'll still make sure no deal goes live on the site before I've seen it. I don't want stuff that customers don't value, or that someone like, and that 2% of the time I can actually add some value. 99% I'm not actually adding any value. I'm just sort of ticking a box that's already been ticked. Yeah. But the fact is, people know that I'm going to tick that box. They put a bit extra harder work into it. We've got great managers at that sort of level between that are do a really good job of making sure the boxes are ticked. But like, there is a point where, obviously, as a business gets bigger, you can only get, unless you're Berkshire Hathaway, which inherently scales massively with a really small team because of the nature of wealth management. But our business obviously scales with people, and you can't be over everything. I used to write So whenever we had a customer service disaster, so like, say a classic example is we sold 1,000 rooms at a hotel then shuts for renovations. Not our fault, but ultimately we sold it. And we've got to write an email to the customer saying, sorry. There's a way to write that email and there's a way not to write that email. And I used to write those emails because the downside of stuffing up was so significant. And our team was young and we had like a handful of people in CS then. I don't write them anymore, but sometimes I see them and they're not what I would have written and I'll rewrite them and whatever. But you can't do everything. Like you got to sort of obviously allocate your time, as you know, where it's most valued. So, like for me, it's sort of called the deal stuff and the product stuff, and obviously the team. And you've got to be. To your earlier question is how do you change as a CEO as the business grows? Clearly, team becomes more and more important. We've had to grow our team, not just size-wise, but capability-wise, massively. Like we can't have Mark going and signing $1 million deals anymore because A, he's sort of retired in many ways, and B, you can't replicate a superstar. You've got to be able to create a playbook that people can use, and that the likes of Aaron, who's our highest performing partnerships person now, has been able to take and improve on. So, yeah, there is that balancing act. You've got to be able to attracting great people, retaining great people. And obviously allocating capital as any CEO needs to do. But I think the beauty of a founder CEO and why the market at the moment loves founders, like this changes. The market hates founders, loves founders. It sort of oscillates. But the reason the market loves founders now is they realise, I think, is the product benefit. Like you get a capital allocator, you get a great attractor of talent, and you get a product person. That's the classic Elon.
I want to drill into this idea of hiring the great people. And knowing that you guys have scaled, from a very small team to, over 500 people, what have you learned about that hiring process to make sure you can attract and keep the best talent?
We didn't realise how important hiring good people was initially. Like we got good people by luck and we didn't have to pay them that much. It was sort of people we knew or whatever. And you often don't know who's going to be great and who's often the best resumes aren't the best people. In fact, there's probably no correlation at all to an extent, or to minimal correlation. So we didn't have, and because we weren't VC back like you guys, when you raise 10, 20 million bucks, you can just go hire whoever because you got the cash to pay them. We were bootstrap, we didn't have that cash. So it took us probably 7 or 8 years to start really understanding the importance of hiring good people. Even more so, I was out of business for about a year. I wasn't CEO for a year in 2019, 2020, came back during COVID. And that break was amazing, but incidentally. So I was able to really understand, it's much easier to draft like somebody else's article or piece of or assignment. Same as much easier to look on when somebody else is running the business. Not saying they're doing a good or a bad job or whatever, but just you see someone else is doing this good stuff they do, the stuff they do that probably isn't so good, and the stuff that you were doing that wasn't so good and it was good, and you just really recalibrate. And unless you step out for a bit, yes, you can't. So I've been CEO for, we'll call it 10 years to that point. I reckon it gave me another 10 years. Like I probably would have had to do something else. But it gave me another 10 years plus of doing this. I think I could do this forever, technically. But I wouldn't have been able to but for that.
Yes.
Unless somebody says that, you've done enough, time to move on. But I think from my perspective, I came back sort of a far, far more rounded leader. And a big part of that was understanding the importance of good people. And there was people that were probably hired in that period who I wouldn't have hired. And some people who were hired who we still have. So weren't all bad by any stretch, but there were some people, and you sort of learn from that. The first thing I did was bring back my CTO, CPO, who had left when I left, who went to Amazon, brought him back. And he's been instrumental at building our team, our dev team up. Then just really started hiring some really good people across the line. We did have some great people who were in the business before and still are. As a business, we've got a really good record of retaining good people. We very, very rarely lose good people. And often they come back when we do lose them, we get them back. In not every case, but most cases or a lot of cases. So I think, I'm not sure if I answered the question exactly as intended, but in terms of, so there's an attraction and retention point. So in terms of attraction, again, talk about hey, a leader has to be a great salesperson. Yes. When you're recruiting somebody, you're selling the business to them. You're going to pay someone like double market, but nobody really wants to do that. So you've got to make sure people understand this is the upside of the business and not lie. Obviously, be genuine in your belief, but I think we could become a $2, $3, $4, $5 billion business, whatever end up being. And if I genuinely believe that and get that point across, hopefully we can get great people to join our journey and get incentivized via equity or whatever it is, so they can hopefully make a lot more money than they would have in a great environment. We also want to make our environment really fun and happy. I've been very big on working from the office, not working from home, which is a sort of vexed topic. Not everybody agrees with me by any stretch, but we took a position and I think...
How's that paid off?
I think it's paid off significantly. The most important stat from that is not every single person was working from the office straight away. We had remote people, hired remote basis or whatnot during COVID. We've got double the attrition rate if you don't work from the office. So if you work from the office, you're half as likely to leave. So that's the biggest tick for it. Our EMPS is higher than it's ever been. We've got the best team we've ever had. So I think if you look at every data point we have, it's worked. And you go to the Atlassian guys, give a whole heap of crap that has no data behind it that says it's working. And I guess where I do agree with Scott on that is they took a position, we can work from anywhere. We took a position, you've got to work from the office. Yep. Where we agree on, we don't like this hybrid bullshit. Yeah. Like the work, if you want to come to office 2 days a week, we kind of want you in, but if you don't want to, you don't have, that doesn't work at all. Like Atlassian took the view as, okay, never come in, which is, I don't agree with the view, but I respect the fact the guys took a position. Our view is 4 days a week in the office, 5 if you're a manager, unless you got a genuine reason, i.e. you're a carer. That's the reason we allow people, if you're a mum or a dad and you've got to look after your kids or you've got to look after your parent or a sick relative, that's a completely genuine reason. Or if you happen to live too far away and we're hired on that basis, we can't in good faith then make you come in and travel 5 hours a day, but you've got to have a really, really good reason. And for the last 2 years, everybody we hire, we say, we're a 4 or 5 day week in the office. If you don't like that, completely fine. There's plenty of places you can work that we're not for you. And people understand it coming in. We attract a certain type of person who wants to be around people and wants to be in the office. The main issue with remote work and the reason, there's a couple of issues. You look at what Scott Galloway says about why people stay at a workplace is because they have a friend at the office. Yes. Pretty hard to have a friend if you're not working with them. You're not in the same room. You can't make a friend over Zoom. So that if you believe, and I think Scott's right there, if you believe in the Scott Galloway theory, it doesn't work unless you're in person. The productivity point, I'm less bothered about. I think good people are super productive at home. Like there are a couple of people who, for whatever reason, can't come to the office, genuine, like really good reasons. Could be a health issue, could be a care issue. They're still very productive people and still very good employees. And we may arguably get more productivity out of them because they save commuting time. The problem I have with it is if everybody was like that, and if you never reason, is how do you train? How do you teach younger people?
Incredibly hard.
The really interesting data point, because I've done fair bit of work around this. Work from home is people think, it's the Gen Z millennial trope. They don't want to come to work. They want to watch Netflix at home. That's not true at all. People who aren't coming to work are the 40 plus. People who are wanting to come to work are the 20, 25-year-olds because they want to learn, they want to push their career. Rightly or not, it's very hard to get promoted if you're not in front of your boss. Yeah. And you can say it's unfair, and it probably is, but everybody has a recency bias. Everybody has a cognitive bias. If I'm not looking at you every day, you're just not in front of my mind. Help it, And then there's Bloomberg had a data point a couple of weeks ago. If you're not in the office, you're 50% more likely to be redundant. Again, probably not fair, but that's the case. So if you're an absolute superstar, if you've got a really good reason, you're caring for a child or a parent, completely fine. We understand it. Our policy is 4 days in the office, but we want to be super flexible. If you need to take your dog to the vet, if you need to help your mum go somewhere, if you need to do whatever, as long as it's not happening every day, then we're completely cool with flexible. You can want to start at 10 and work till 7 or start at 5 a.m. and leave at 2. That's fine as well. Like we want you in the office for it. No point coming up for a minute. But if you're in the office for a genuine amount of time, that's great. But we value in-person collaboration. You can feel and hear the buzz when you come in the office. And when during COVID, when it was like 20 people and there was no buzz.
It's sad.
Yeah, it's sad.
It's sad. Yeah.
So you've got to take a view. So I don't agree with Scott and Mike, but I prefer their view to what the banks are doing. And please come in, guys, 3 days a week. And then it's just terrible. And
so I'll take those. So to the question there around what have you learned through that hiring? So what I got from that is something I really like, which is around that the CEO, your role becomes almost like internal sales. It's like to get people, for lack of a better word, to be drinking the Kool-Aid, to be excited about the environment, the place, where we're going, the mission. Yeah. Secondly is having, I guess, clear directive around what is and what isn't our culture. So through the work from home or not. Anything else there that you think is a bit of a a silver bullet or something that has really helped you keep or get those great people? I think on that last point, and the work for myself is a facet of it, but is hire for cultural fit. Yes. So forgetting where the office location, because that naturally comes. If we hire the kind of people we want, we want to hire outgoing, vivacious, high initiative kind of people. They're the kind of people who naturally want to work from the office anyway. Yes. In most cases, not all. There can be some really good reasons why people don't want to, but the general rule is that's the kind of person we want. So we want people who are smart, but like raw intelligence in many cases. We've had super smart people who haven't worked out. Yeah. They're not that they weren't smart, that the cultural fit wasn't right. So it could be a number of reasons, but we want constant learners who are really commercial.
and work hard. And that's a great fit and are super outgoing. So if you can sort of fit, you're not going to get everybody, but as in everybody's not going to be all four. But if you can get sort of three of those, then you're probably on a good wicket. And like the most important role of any, and every culture is different. So sometimes you want a culture of people who are sort of introverted. That's the business. But for our business, the nature of the product we sell, we generally want, and you don't want 100% extroverts either. We want people who are a cultural alignment for what we do, who love being around other people, love pushing the envelope, doing the right thing by our customers, doing that thing by all our stakeholders, but creating lots of value.
Love that. I have two more questions for you, Adam.
Yeah.
Let's say you're starting a new business tomorrow. Can't tap into this incredible business you've created. What are you doing differently in 2024 that you didn't have access to or couldn't do before?
I kind of half think about this, and I sort of shelve it because I was going too hard. Well, anyway, like you, I created a podcast. We're very similar paths. I created a podcast with my friend Adir. You created this podcast as a second sort of next profession and done an incredible job, incidentally. I think clearly there's a greater understanding of social reach these days, and you've been an unbelievable exponent of that.
Thank you.
Us probably less so, but it's like if you look at when we started the business, the main way to reach customers was really Google, and we use newspapers. Now it's probably a bit more social.
Yep.
It depends on the business to an extent. If you're trying to tap 60 plus, social is probably not for you. Maybe Facebook.
Yep.
65-year-olds probably aren't on Insta, really, and certainly aren't on TikTok. So it's definitely the route to market is different. If I was choosing another business, I'd also travel is really hard. The barriers to entry are really low, partly because it is a negative cash flow business in some ways, so you don't need to raise capital first. So barriers to entry low. It's not super high tech in many ways, and it's low margin. So I'll probably create I'm working a higher margin business. Like travel's the lowest margin business almost of anything.
Wow.
Like a good travel business might be on 2 or 3% net margins, which is crazy low compared to SaaS. And SaaS you can be spitting out 60% potentially. Yeah. So it's certainly a margin profile, something I look at differently. Into a business where you can build a moat. Clearly being able to build genuine defensibility is the key to a great business.
And how do you think about a moat?
What's the power you have? Again, using Hamilton Helmers powers, what's the differentiator that you have that will allow you to make greater profits than your competitors, essentially? Brand's the most obvious one. Scale you get to eventually. Stuff like cornered resources is sort of a bit harder. But how do you build a brand is a really interesting point. That's sort of what we've done, what you guys have done. How to build a brand and make customers love you is probably the most important way. And how do you do that without spending too much money? So I haven't thought of specific use cases because I've had such a great time here. I haven't really been interested in starting a new business. But it would be, and I'm not sure I ever would, to be honest. Like I at the moment, and in the last 10 years, I've done a bunch of angel investing. I help out. I'm on a bunch of boards, all that kind of stuff. I'm into probably 40 different people in different ways, sometimes for like a minute a month and sometimes for a couple of hours every quarter, whatever it is. So it's very different, but that's probably how, and I'd love to do something in the sort of like you are in the not-for-profit space, but run it as a business, like not run it as a business, but some people have done really well post whatever that post-Lux career is. But at the moment, I don't like to think about too many things ahead because my focus needs to be on this. This is you don't get too many great opportunities. You've had one, maybe two. You don't get too many great opportunities because you need so much luck. And we had so much luck in this business. There's so many things that had to go right to get to where we are. We're not 10 out of 10. There's still lots of work we need to do. We're very much still think of the life cycle of we're a teenager in many ways. And teenagers can go become successful or not. So our future isn't written yet. We're doing everything we can to be a really successful business for our shareholders and stakeholders in the future, but we're not there yet. So I need to focus on getting this business really right and continue to grow. As Blake, my former GM who runs Flipper now, is a ripping guy, said sort of 6 years ago, the lead's ours to lose. And it still is in a way, but we still haven't won the game. Like we still have to, we're still a fraction of booking, we're still a fraction of Flight Centre, we're still a fraction of Airbnb. There's so much work we need to do to be able to mention the same breadth of those unbelievable businesses globally that till we sort of get there, then I'll focus on what's next. And I sort of know what I want to do eventually, but now we've got to focus on how we make this the best possible business we can.
And what does winning the game look like for you? And we can take that in the context of both this business and your life.
Well, I think let's merge. Let's take it like so I think if we can have a successful exit here at some point or just spin out cash because we're the same sort of thing and use that cash to create something that's great for other people in terms of a not-for-profit type. And not-for-profits run like a business.
Yeah.
And I've been on a bunch of not-for-profit boards and they actually are run in many cases pretty well, but they're not run by business people in a sense. So, and there's a few sort of areas I want to focus on. So ideally, by the time I'm sort of 50 or 55, have enough capital to be able to really push a not-for-profit entity to significant levels and create the maximum possible difference we can. But that involves building the biggest possible capital stash, and we're clearly nowhere near that yet. So that's sort of, they call it the 10 to 15 year plan, and then we'll have another sort of 10 to 15 years to. I'll probably work until I die. Like I can't, and hopefully that's not for 40 years or so, but I think I've got 10 to 15 years to keep building, and then another sort of 15, 20 years to call it spend it, but it's not spend it on planes, but spend it on building the best possible social good we can.
Why do you think that's important to you?
Well, from a purely selfish perspective, like I think you get more joy out of something like that than out of consumption. We don't love consuming. I actually hate spending money. Like I will never pay for a business class flight. I'll use points, but I'll never pay for it because I just can't stand the waste. So we're not people who like spending a lot of money. Like investing in an asset maybe that you can eventually sell and get some value down the track, fine. But just sort of spending money on consumption, eating in expensive restaurants, like it's just not something that we like doing or do. My wife's very much the same. She hates waste. So we're very aligned on that. Jez is very similar as well, hates spending money on stuff that is wasted. So like you got to do, and you don't want to give it to your kids because it's not good for them. Yeah. So ultimately you need to give it away. As Andrew Carnegie's famous quote, thus who dies rich dies as grace. There certainly is some merit in that. Maybe he was pretty firm on that, but from a purely selfish perspective, you get so much joy out of giving to other people. It's not necessarily the most generous thing. I think it's just like, it's actually, I'm doing it from a selfish perspective in a way. It's a reverse form of selfishness, but still selfishness.
We're built that way. It's really interesting. Like if you come all the way back to cave people days, it's like the feeling of adding the value to the community and helping out. It's like it is ingrained. It has a very special feeling. I have one last question for you. Yeah. I know the story hasn't yet been written. You know, it feels like we're at the middle or the teenage years, as you say.
Yeah.
But as we look back, what are you most proud of?
It's a really good question because I don't think I necessarily am proud of anything really. Like I think the things actually that's not right. There's a couple of small incidents I can think of, and both was that our really good partnerships guy who I told you about. As COVID was finishing up, so we hadn't done really anything in Bali. So Bali was our biggest destination pre-COVID, is again now, but during COVID we couldn't sell really anything in Bali. So COVID's starting to lift. Bali's talking about like allowing people to come back, or Indonesia, and Aaron went to Bali to speak to some hotels because that's how we tend to do it face to face. And there was two instances. One, a hotel we'd never actually worked with before. I think it was the first time we worked with them, and he was at lunch with them, and we'd done a deal, and the deal had just gone live. So this is as stuff was opening up, and it was like probably our first proper Bali deal in a couple of years. And they're sitting at lunch, and like they're at lunch, and then like 10 minutes in, there's a sale. And I go, oh, that's pretty good. I mean, this hotel hadn't had a sale. Like basically had $0 or virtually $0 of revenue in 2 years. Hadn't had a sale, and then 10 minutes later another one, 10 minutes later another one. And by the end of the lunch, there's like $50,000 in sales.
Wow.
And I think it was the head of sales or the general manager, whoever it was actually in tears when they were saying, because this was, they could bring their staff back. This is staff who were basically on poverty style, like subsistence, because there's just no money coming in. The government there was no JobKeeper in Indonesia, not that I know of. So they were so happy with the value we could, like, and there was no other business on earth could have created this revenue for them. Like Booking.com was not creating this kind of revenue this quickly. That was a slow burn over a couple of years. So we were able to effectively, and I think the campaign did $1 million. So they could bring everybody back and suddenly strength to strength. And we still work with this partner a lot to this day, which is just the fact that you can create such happiness after such an incredibly difficult time was amazing. Then same trip, Aaron goes back to the hotel where I think it was a different hotel, and he's in there, and obviously this hotel had stayed open, I think, in Skelton. He's in there and they're cleaning the room, and the person cleaning the room said, oh, you're from Luxury Escapes? He goes, yes, and they went and just hugged him because they understood how important, like, what we could do for them was. So yeah, we can make money or whatever. We're going to hire lots of people, which is actually fantastic. But the ability to create, wealth is probably not that word, but create a living wage for people in countries where they don't necessarily have one, especially coming out of that horrific COVID. I had plenty to say about COVID at the time and still do, and I won't have time to talk about it here, but there was that 2 years of hell and it was as bad as it was for Australia. It was worse if you lived in Fiji or Bali because you had no income.
Yeah.
You were literally living in poverty pretty much. And for us to be able to help these people out of that was probably the proudest thing. And when Aaron told me that story, he was moved, I was moved, and we was actually a partner at the time, another partner, and it was like it's not often you get to do that. So we're in the happiness business. We create lots of great experiences for mostly Australian, but we will sell in the US and UK, whatever now. So selling 500,000 plus people, incredible experiences every day, which is great. But being able to go further than that and help people who are such incredible, Balinese, such incredible people, and Fiji, and such incredible, and be able to help our great partners there after such a hard period is probably the most proud thing we've ever done.
I love that. Adam, thank you so much.